Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Now, final week of Season 2 in Battlegrounds has started, and this is the week that matters. This is the week that will decide where you place at end of the season and what kind of rewards are you going to get. We have Crit Me with your best shot, a node that effectively eliminates all damage sources but big yellow numbers. To understand how it works, it's very simple. If it isn't a big yellow number, it will do no damage. So no damage or time effects, no burst damage, no power sting damage, no direct damage, none of that stuff. That also includes no recoil damage for your defenders, no liquid courage double edge damage for your defenders. Therefore, it is more than likely that the vast majority of the competitive players are going to run liquid courage double edge masteries because defenders suffer absolutely no penalty for it. Quite on the opposite, they just gain increased attack rating and a free willpower healing throughout the entire fight. So, most people will run liquid courage double edge, and that is also what I'm kind of accent in this video in a slight manner. But then let's figure out what are the MVPs for this week. Now, these champions that I will highlight are going to be the champions that I personally used in my limited testing so far in this meta. I played for about 2.5 hours. I believe I went 8-2 total, which is very good, and let me climb up to top 10 in the world, so Celestial 4. We'll see how obviously the week ends, but the start of it was very fun and interesting. So I'm not going to highlight champions that everybody's going to be running anyways when you associate them with crits. So we're not going to be highlighting CGR, we're not going to be highlighting Ghost, we're not going to be highlighting Hitmonkey, stuff like that. We're going to be focusing on maybe some more interesting interactions that can completely catch your opponents off guard or are much more tricky to counter in this meta due to crit me with your best shot. And some champions that work offensively incredibly well. Side note, Archangel and Human Torch are absolutely useless this week. But let's move on. First champion I'm going to highlight is going to be Joe Fixit. Now, Joe Fixit is great because he gets a massive attack rating increase whenever he gets spades. So your crits are going to be hitting very hard, and on top of that, because you get guaranteed crits and whenever you get hearts, you're going to be regenerating a lot. And then the only thing you need to do is basically get level 2 and finish off the fight, because that level 2 on guaranteed crits is going to hit extremely hard. So Joe Fixit's definitely going to be one of those kind of like sleeper MVPs in my opinion, and so far 100% has been. Moving on, next one is Void. And the explanation here is very simple. So you put Void with Liquid Courage and Double Edge on the defense. He takes no damage from that. He gains willpower healing. He has massive health pool. And then, unless opponent has double immunities, they're going to be taking a ton of damage because they have Liquid Courage Double Edge debuffs on them. So if opponent is using a double immune champion, obviously the fight becomes easier. But even then, Void is a champion that just has very big health pool. And if they do mess up anywhere along the way and get a debuff on, they'll still get damage as well. So Void definitely is a nasty defender in this meta when everybody's going to be running Liquid Courage Double Edge. Nick Fury. Now, Nick Fury might seem as an obvious choice to put on defense, but it's even crazier than you guys think. Because Nick Fury now gets 2 full health bars. And that's it. When he enters second life, he does not degen at all, because degen damage is not critical hit damage. And that means that Nick Fury just got a whole lot of longer to fight, in a sense. So Nick Fury is definitely also going to be one of the mainstay defenders. Next one is a champion that I have been having a lot of fun with in this meta, and that works absolutely amazing. It's Captain Britain. And the reason why he works so great is because of that simple ability here. When Captain Britain is struck by a critical hit or hits her block, she has 80% chance to inflict exhaustion, reducing critical damage rating by 500 max 4 stacks. So when you hit her, she's going to be putting 4 exhaustion debuffs on you that reduce your critical rating by a ton. So you're going to be hardly doing any damage. Obviously, she at the same time does not take any damage from Liquid Courage Double Edge being on defense. And additionally, if you happen to be running stuff like Despair or Inequity, that healing gets reduced, that damage rating gets further reduced. And even if opponent uses a champion that can get rid of these exhaustion debuffs, then still she's going to be gaining a ton of prowesses every time they purify anything, and the fight just becomes very, very risky in case opponent eats like a level 1 on a block or something. So she's amazing so far. She always takes ages to get down. Now, Bishop maintains all of his defensive power, so to speak, in this meta, right? But one of the worst things about Bishop is that he had a fairly low crit rate, and if the level 2 didn't crit, it didn't do too much damage. Well, in this meta with Bishop, you can pretty much one level 2 one-shot anything, because when you get a guaranteed crit on that level 2 with plenty of prowess, opponents are just going to die. Simple as that. So Bishop is extremely dangerous attacker because he can level 2 opponents easily. Moving further, we have Mr. Sinister. And Mr. Sinister, again, is especially dangerous right now because of a few reasons. Number one, typically the way you dealt with Mr. Sinister was either, use some debuffs or whatever else. Stuff like Archangels and well, right now, he doesn't take damage from it, so it's much harder to damage him. And every time you crit against Mr. Sinister, he's going to be regenerating. Every time you hit him, he's going to be regenerating. And on top of that, if you're running Liquid Courage Double Edge, if your Mr. Sinister gets to a level 1, he's going to be throwing that bleed and poison back at the opponent, which is also almost bound to do some extra damage. So the only way to really counter Mr. Sinister right now is to use a flat-out heal block, pretty much. There are a couple of other champions who can do it, but he's definitely extremely troublesome defender now. Good on those who ranked 1 up for Alliance or Defense. Toad is another cool guy that in this meta will work fine offensively and defensively. Because Toad, number 1, he's also a champion that can, only champion I believe right now, that can short a Nick Fury fight offensively, because Penny will not really work. Second thing is, with guaranteed crits and his prowesses, his level 2 is going to do a lot of damage. But the reason why he's exceedingly good defender is also very simple. It's because whenever he gets hit, he normally has 7% chance to inflict poison on the opponent. But being struck with critical hits has 40% chance. So he's going to be putting a ton more poisons on the opponent. And remember, if opponent's poison immune, then once Toad reaches 10 prowesses, if he's awakened, then he's going to passively stun the opponent, which is going to cause them to get wrecked. So Toad has become much more dangerous defender. Moving on, Havok. Now, Havok has been an absolute gem so far. One of the kind of like secret W's here. The thing with Havok is very simple. Every time you hit Havok with a critical hit, he places a plasma on the opponent. And because of that, that is the only way to do damage to Havok. You're going to be placing a lot of plasmas on the opponent. When you combine these plasmas with stuff like Inequity, you significantly reduce opponent's damage. Also, Havok has critical damage rating mitigation as well, where critical hits do have 50% reduced critical damage as is, so he's going to be taking a lot less damage, pretty much from any source. And the only way not to get feedback damage against Havok in this meta is to have an armor up active. Otherwise, you're screwed. Simple as that. Because normally you could bait out the heavy attacks, manage it, and just use champions that do not crit too often. All of that goes out of the window here because everybody has to crit. So Havok is so much more dangerous right now. Storm is potentially going to be one of the biggest offensive gems. And the thing with Storm is that every time she crits, she gains a prowess. And you're going to be critting a lot. So you're going to be gaining a ton of prowesses. And then when you get special attack, those are going to be guaranteed crits. And the fight's going to last like 20 seconds. So Storm can definitely nuke down a lot of champions extremely quickly because of her huge amount of prowess. And now those hits being guaranteed, she's going to ramp up quicker and specials are going to do so much more damage. Moving on, Warlock. Warlock is a secret kind of gem here as well because he's a dual threat. Number 1, he has the highest crit damage rating in the game, pretty much. So he's going to be hitting very, very hard. On top of that, pretty much everybody is running Liquid Courage Double Edge, so he's going to have exceedingly good power control pretty much at any times. And also because he's going to power control opponents, you're going to have easier time intercepting because you're not going to have to worry about baiting out special attacks as much. Additionally, obviously he's going to be perfectly capable as a defender because you can't crit against him if he has armor up, so he's going to be trickier to fight against than he normally is. And then on top of all of that, also obviously infection is extra nasty when you're running Liquid Courage Double Edge against this guy. So he's very, very dangerous. Another champion right now is Hulkling, due to the simple fact that there are less counters to him in the current meta, and it's quite hard to get him down. And at the same time, he's a champion that has high attack rating modification, so he's going to be gaining a ton of attack rating. And he didn't crit much previously, but now he will. So he's going to finish fights and has been finishing fights extremely fast in like 30 seconds and stuff as well. Basically just get level 2 and nuke down the opponent with guaranteed crits. Moving on, Sersi. Sersi is also an interesting pick here because, well, the thing about Sersi is if you don't crit against her, you do no damage, and as soon as you do crit, she's going to trigger her protection, so she's just going to be extremely nasty as well. And obviously with guaranteed crits, she's even more dangerous offensively and quicker offensively, so she's definitely one of those very, very, very nasty champions in this meta. Nova is again one of those champions that's going to work better because he has high modified attack ratings, so when he does crit, he's going to be doing a lot of damage with his furies and everything else. And also, whenever opponent hits him with through strike, unblockable, or guaranteed critical hits, they have minus 70% attack rating, which means he's a lot more tankier than he used to be. Simple as that. Nova is going to take time to take down. Moving on, Rintra. Rintra is a good champion to slow down the game, so he's still obviously very potent defensively. There are less counters to him now defensively, and also offensively. You don't need many Raptors with that ability to land a guaranteed crit to finish out the fight. So you can finish out most of the fights with a single level 2, because now you have guaranteed crit that completely kind of like offsets this abysmal crit rate. Like how his level 2 typically almost never crits, now it's almost always going to crit if you play it right. Well, not almost, always going to crit if you play it right. So Rintra can nuke things down. Moving on, Man-Thing is again exceedingly difficult champion to go up against now, because Man-Thing doesn't take any extra damage from crits, and that means that he's just extra tanky. Simple as that. It's going to take longer to take Man-Thing down. The last champion is Ebony Maw. Now, Ebony Maw is nowhere near as troublesome as everybody worried about him to be, because his guaranteed miss ability does not work against science champions. So the only thing you really have to do to counter Ebony Maw is to bring in a science champion, and they're going to do just fine, or to bring in a champion with high crit rate and just don't intercept. He's still dangerous, you can still trap and catch opponents, but he is not as dangerous as many people worried him to be. Another last mention that I wanted to give, and I kind of skipped out, is obviously the Thing. Because the Thing also has just become so much more tanky. Because you can't use any damage over time effects or passive damage to bypass the protection, and you have to crit against the guy. And if you use any champion with high attack rating, obviously protection's pretty much always going to be there, and he's going to stall the fights out quite well. So that is so far the list of the champions that I have been using, and quite successfully for myself. And I hope this video helped you out as well. If it did, well then hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the good buttons, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about